Welcome to Better Circles, a podcast where we bring great people together to share ideas that are good for the planet. We're your hosts, Fiona Smith and Luke Phillips. Every episode, we sit down with our deck of conversation starter cards and talk about the things that are making us feel hopeful and inspired. Hey, Luke. Hey, Kunal.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. So good to have you here.
Thank you. Really stoked to be here. Always like to be in this warehouse, this Luke's shop, and always a pleasure being here. So happy to be back.
So we're here at Intercoffee again, which is on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we'd like to pay our respects to their elders past and present.
Extra thank you for being here, given your circumstance. Fresh baby, 3 months?
3 months. Just 3 months and 2 weeks now. And it's been a really fun time. I would highly recommend it.
To kick off the podcast in our normal way, rather than diving in deep into your backstory, we're going to do a tandem hyping session. I'll kick it off. I've had the pleasure of knowing Kunal for maybe 2 years. And it originally came through a friend of a friend, but through some different professional relationships as well. When you were working at Oricon, working on the circular economy precinct in Kensington, which was epic. And my favourite part of your career, and I'm excited to hear more about it today, ALT-EFF. You'll have to correct me on this, the most screenings in the world for a film festival?
Yeah, well, I'll also expand on what ALT-EFF stands for, which means All Living Things Environmental Film Festival. And it is the largest decentralized film festival in the world. And when we say decentralized, it means the number of screenings we host in the number of locations over the festival period. So in 2024, that number stood at 70 locations around India and 5 countries outside of India, all over a 2-week period.
Epic. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Fee, would you want to recap in? I'd love to dive in further to ALT-EFF.
I mean, yeah, All Living Things sounds incredible. I haven't had the pleasure of being at one of the screenings before, but Kunal and I know each other again through friends, and every time we meet, we end up going like deep into some project one of us is working on. You were doing some really cool stuff, waste management for high-rise buildings, and you know that being one of the biggest barriers people have in terms of composting. If you live in apartments, you don't have FOGO bins. You know, taking a service design, system design approach to all these big challenging, you know, issues and the things that are the barriers that people have to being able to make positive changes in their lives. So that's like the angle I knew about, and then Luke's like, oh no, the film festival is the angle. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. My understanding, or at least why I love it so much, is it makes really valuable information not only accessible but really exciting and engaging. But before we kick off, at risk of getting too interviewy, I just can't help myself but ask you how that started, why you started it, how it's going, and just maybe like a dot point summary of the journey with ALT-EFF.
Yeah, sure thing. And before I do that, though, Fee, I know every time we do meet, we're at a party and then 2 hours pass and we're in like corner of one room just chatting about like both of our projects.
Just like wildly gesturing.
And over the period, other people have been like, you guys come. And we're like, yeah, in a minute. And it's 2 hours
Got
later.
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so that happens every time. But yeah, ALT-EFF, yeah, it started, you know, I moved back to India in 2018 after living in Australia for 13 years. And it was a really personal story because I shifted careers from being an economist working for the state government to moving into the environmental sphere, particularly as a result of the experiences I had in the arts and culture in Melbourne. It's not something that is so prevalent back in India. It has not been so prevalent when I returned back. It has changed since. So I wanted to create a platform, a space which is led through the creative lens, coming at the bigger problem of environment sustainability. And so it was all around, okay, there's this huge complex issue that we're all facing, and my interactions with people when I returned there was some grasp of that there's a problem, but nobody had any clear idea about the nuances and the whole wide variety of issues and the ways at which we could come at it. So I kind of leaned into, okay, what made me go down this path? And that was, you know, films that I watched, festivals and, you know, events that I went to, the people that I met, the connections that I made, the new ideas I was exposed to, and the new perspectives that I was exposed to. And so I wanted to kind of create something like that for India. And that kind of became my mission. Okay, this is what I want to do here. And so, yeah, film is an incredibly powerful medium. And so especially for the Indian audience, we have a huge film industry. People spend a lot of their free time watching movies. So it really created a very small barrier to entry. So it was kind of like packaging really important, impactful stuff, but in a way where people are very comfortable to interact with it. And so that's why the idea for an environmental film festival came about, and launched that in India there.
And also excited to share it afterwards. I think the gem of, if you listen to a podcast that's really dense with climate information and you're getting educated and excited, and then you go and relay that information to your friend a couple of hours later and you're kind of lost for words because they might have been using specific jargon or referencing specific numbers, but the accessibility and the shareability is incredible. And you guys have taken that to a whole new level with the decentralised model. We're lucky enough, well, you guys did all the work, but we hosted a screening here, which was incredible. The 3 short films that you did were, out of control, which we won't dive into deep, but people can access the films year round. There's a directory.
Yeah, so we actually launched a film archive on our website, which is ALT-EFF.in, ALT-EFF.in. And on that, we have close to about 80 films now, which is available for free viewing and streaming whenever we want. Epic. So we have that archive. Those are all films that have been in our program over the last 5 years. But then there's a whole range of others as well, which are not there, but that's a good taster.
Wow,
that's a good news story right there.
Wow. Again, not to get too interviewy, but in terms of the filmmakers who are making those films, are they mostly coming from India or are they from around the world? Who's telling the stories?
Yeah, it's from all over the world. We are representing anything between 35 to 50 countries at every festival in the program, but almost about 40 to 50% of the program is Indian or South Asian, and we are very particular about ensuring that because we want to give voice to Indian storytellers, and primarily because the kind of funds and resourcing available to tell these stories in India is still quite nascent, whereas in the West there's a lot of filmmakers already telling these stories and bringing environmental storytelling to the fore. There's a lot of funding available for it,
sure.
But we are kind of being that catalyst in India to try to encourage more filmmakers to take up those kind of stories. And the other thing as well, the films that we do bring is not the David Attenborough style environmental documentaries. For people who often is a very common question, so what is an environmental film? Well, it's a film which is a very engaging piece that makes you sit and keep watching it till it ends and grips you, and it has a layer of environment or conservation or indigenous knowledge or energy, or it's just a whole mire of different subjects that fall within the environmental theme. But we really bring stories that have a very clear narrative lead to it, like clear story rather than just a third person kind of with a voiceover explaining a situation. Very narrative-led stories is what we program at ALT-EFF, and that's what is engaging. They are often documentaries, but they are documentaries which are very interesting and engaging and thought-provoking.
What are some of the ripple effects of this? You sit at this hub and knowing you as a person, you and Laura, your incredible partner, you're both connectors and you bring people together and you love to host. I feel like that's just a natural progression that you would end up doing ALT-EFF. It's the perfect mix of all of your skills and interests. Is there a lot of connecting people and seeing some ripple effects of impact happen and kind of translate and materialize?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something that we are constantly attempting to measure better. It's very hard to do, but we know that ALT-EFF started off as a pretty small thing in 2020 in the midst of COVID, and last year we had 30,000 people attend the festival over the 2 weeks. So in that sphere, though, we are having a lot of people writing to us. We have anecdotal evidence of the connections that are being made, the knowledge that is being shared, the solidarity that's being built around issues. So that's happening at quite a significant way. But at the same time, the festival is quite a intense period where there's this huge push and there's an insane amount of energy around it, and a lot of natural connections and ripple effects are taking place as a result of that. But just last year, we also launched a film club to kind of really bring that into a bit more of a closed and a much more of a organized kind of fashion, where the same set of people can meet once every month for a 6-month period. We show them some films. We have some very casual conversations. The whole idea about a film club is to build community around climate issues with the ALT-EFF Film Club. So that is where we're really seeing that transformative change happening. In a place like India where it is so busy, there's so much happening all the time, you're faced with this constant barrage of information, and also your day-to-day life is just, your whole peripheral vision is completely very busy. And so it's really really hard when you're experiencing climate grief and you're hit with information around, like, the world is burning, for example. What do you do about that? There's that in the youth in India is becoming a huge issue now. So the film club is where we're bringing people together, looking at solutions, finding ways in terms of what is it that we can do, which is in our hands. What are the grassroots movements that are taking place out there so we can feel inspired by them and do stuff about it. That launched in 3 cities last year. We're going to be launching this year's film club in April in 9 cities around India. So starting April for 6 months, we'll be having screenings and chats and hangouts around the films.
So it's in person? It's not an online thing?
Yeah, it's an in-person film club, yeah.
And they're championed by a local individual, or is...
So there's a host and a co-host, which we get them up to speed with the films. They watch the films. ALT-EFF kind of facilitates a pretty deep conversation around the subjects and the topic that the films are about, and the activity that it's going to be followed by at the film club.
How is that hosted and structured?
So you go in there, you watch the film, and then there's probably a conversation, or there's like a stand-up session, or there might be like some kind of a activation, like a bio blitz, for example. So just kind of really clear pathways for people to engage and do something after they've watched a really impactful film. And you don't want them to just kind of go home feeling like, oh shit, I got exposed to this information and now I don't know where to go with it. Right there, right then, we're providing clear pathways. Okay, this is what's happening. That's where that movement is today. This is what you can do. And this is if it's an international film, this is what's happening in Belgium. But here's similar situations, which is happening in India. Like a film the first film this year is going to be about how to use the justice system for climate recourse, and to kind of, how we can take big oil and gas companies and take the government to the court and go like, you have a duty of care and you're not actually protecting the future interests of us, your citizens of the country, for example. That's what that whole film is about. So we're going to talk about, okay, how does that look like? The film was from Belgium. Look, what is happening in India in that context? Do we even have an opportunity to do that? Are the courts and the legal systems being used, or are there laws that we can use to kind of take organizations or the governments or whoever it is to get recourse around not taking climate action, for example? Another film which is called Deep Rising, which is all about deep sea mining of rare earth metals and so on, and cobalt and copper and stuff that we need for the electrification of the world. And so, that's again an international film. And we're going to kind of look at what is India doing. Are we actually allowing that? Are we not allowing that? What is it that we need to do to stop it? Or, what limit, or how can we kind of put more due diligence around the process? So then the conversation stuff will be around that. We bring in experts who will kind of guide the conversation. But it's not like a panel discussion or someone at the front talking to the audience. Is more about sprinkling information and then letting the audience kind of have a chat amongst themselves and kind of find a way.
That's a great way to describe it.
It makes me think what you were saying before about you could watch these films and then end up feeling totally overwhelmed, and that this is the way that you are actually going. Now you've been spurred on to action. This is the action you could take. And it makes me think of what Bob Brown says, which is like the antidote to despair is action. And there was a screening of the Bob Brown Foundation's latest film here at Intercoffee just recently. So maybe the only 2 film screenings that have happened at Intercoffee.
Yeah, no, that's it. Just those 2. Yeah, I mean, we did a movie night here once, but that doesn't really count.
Film screenings.
It's a great spot for
and
it.
Bob Brown Foundation.
Yeah, it's incredible. But also talking to the power of film, like that's how I discovered the Bob Brown Foundation, was through a screening at Revival around the corner for The Giants.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
I cried twice, cried at the start, cried at the end.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's an amazing film. It won the best of the festival at ALT-EFF last year.
Oh, really?
Hey.
Amazing.
It was the opening night film for the festival last year.
Epic.
It was awesome.
It's a beautiful film. And like that idea of going, so now you've seen it, now what? Because I remember walking out of that film, and I mean, you might have been the same, Luke, just going, okay, all right, got to do something, got to support them. And the most recent one, Takanya, the Heart of Luratware, was going, they really talk about, here's what you can do. Like, here's the actions you can take. This is what action looks like and what action will be useful. And I love the idea that you guys have created these, and not just information, but actual groups of people who can sort of form community and have conversations.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical, and it's really refreshing in this digitally dominated world that we live in, right? Like that real interaction that we're having with people is becoming less and less. And when we're trying to solve for such a big problem, we need to be able to go back to community. We need to go back to, our peers and find ways to look at things.
Absolutely. One final question and then we'll move on. Pinky promise. How do you curate the contrast between education and, momentum and aspiration and inspiration?
And doom and gloom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of what I was Trojan horsing as education. But.
Yeah. It's a very challenging task and it's a very big one. And as ALT-EFF gets bigger and kind of more recognized and renowned, that task becomes more and more difficult because the films get submitted to us and then our programmers watch all of the films and then we pick the program for the year. And so we have, this year we've already gotten close to 300 films. We'll probably get more than 500 films that will be submitted to the festival. And then, we have 11-person team that's watching all of these films over like a 2-3 month period. And then they select the program. And so we have some set judging matrix on which the films are scored. However, that kind of goes out of the window as we go down to like the top 200 films because they all are excellent films. They all are important stories to be told. But then it really comes around like what is the balance that we're kind of trying to seek in the program, the right balance of inspiring stories versus ensuring that we are showing the beauty of this world and making sure we're covering all the main important topics that are, we are faced with today, and then also the hard-hitting kind of films that need to come through as well. So then it kind of starts to become more about the balance that we want in the program. And then that's finally layered with also the diversity in where we are going to be showing the films. So with this decentralized approach, we are showing ALT-EFFs happening in the middle of the Himalayas, it's happening on the coast near the Bay of Bengal, it's happening all in the northeast of India, it's happening all over the country in tribal regions and the real rural parts of the country as well. So we also then kind of start looking at, okay, do we have films that can be relevant to this whole wide array of audiences that we have?
Yeah.
And do we have enough films that represent some languages that are accessible to our audiences, but also films that can be easily translated? And we also do dubbing of films now so that we can make them accessible to our rural audiences. So there's all of these different layers. So it's a very complex process actually, but yeah, it's also really fun. As a programmer, we often say that, sometime in the middle of May, there's a big like brain mush that's taking place in 10 or 11 people's brains because you've watched so many films, it becomes hard to differentiate one from the other as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a really good process, and there are all of these factors that we take into consideration because we are so unique. It's not just like film festivals traditionally all are about like the art of the filmmaking and the film itself, but we are about 50% of that, and then 50% is about the message and the story and the topic and the subject. And the production value is not so important when a film with an important message is put forward to us.
Yeah, that's a great matrix to run by. It reminds me of Jim Collins's books and the way that he conducts his research. They have a big team of a bunch of experts and they research it for years and years and years, and then they have this kind of battle showdown at the end where they've got kind of their pieces that they're trying to push into the final edit.
Yeah.
And they have these really heated debates over, this needs to be here and because of X. I can just imagine, some really heartfelt film that's really educational, but, maybe stepping into the like doom and gloom side.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's a lot of those.
There's that as well, yeah.
And so you go, well, this is amazing, but, we can't just be 100% doom and gloom films. It's important information. But yeah, that sounds like a tough task. And from what I've seen, what I've looked at, you absolutely nail it. The 3 films that you curated when you showed it here were incredible. Congrats and well done. It's seriously epic what you're doing.
Yeah, super cool. We did a little bit of a fact check, but is there anything that we missed? Like I talked about you as a service designer and looking at systemic stuff. Luke's been talking about your role as a curator of storytellers and stories and community builder. Is there like a secret third, Kunal, that we don't know who you should mention as well?
Yeah, I guess I should say that there is also, I think, a layer of being a permaculturist. So we also have a little permaculture farm in India where I'm the compost king, and I love to make sure there's no bins at this property. We also have a little kombucha manufacturing unit and a kombucha brewery there, which is a completely zero waste operation.
I'm so curious that you chose to be the compost king and not the kombucha king, because I feel like I would choose kombucha king.
I mean, that's already is a given.
Was that another one of those heated debates where you have to figure out which one comes in? Get the yellow legal pad out.
Which is top on the business card.
When I say compost, it's including human manure as well. We have a composting toilet there, and there's all the food and all the other kind of edible stuff gets composted. But I think when we first went and started the farm back in 2018, we had to build soil right from scratch. So, we had to build these like did sheet mulching and had these 7 layers of organic matter and carbon on top of each other to build that layer of soil. And we kind of, both Laura and I, being really excitable and ambitious, and we kind of decided we just start running farm tours, even though we don't kind of have a farm or no soil. And so we started running farm tours because it's a big tourist area where the farm is. The one thing that we did do very first from a building perspective was build ourselves a composting toilet.
Yeah.
So pretty much like half the farm tour, and this is chargeable, people paying for these farm tours. We used to take them to the composting toilet and like talk to them about it. And like I would usually lead that part, and I would just kind of make it sound so exciting and so cool and so revolutionary. And the audiences coming from Mumbai and Pune actually looked at it that way. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that we are not flushing our poop down, and all of our poop is just sitting down there. And you should get them to come in and see, like, look, it's not smelling, it's all really nice and all of this. So I think from there I kind of became the waste guy. I was already a bit of the waste guy. And so that kind of really continued. And I think when that role came to be, the circular economy role in Melbourne came up, I think Laura saw it first and she's like, you're the waste guy, it sounds perfect for you.
Yay.
Hit it up. And so that's how we came back here.
That's so great. With the farm tours, I've done a garden tour of, there's this amazing restaurant in Tasmania called the Agrarian Kitchen. Mm-hmm. And they do, these beautiful degustation lunches, but they also grow like 90% of what they cook in the kitchen on site. And so they have this whole amazing permaculture farm set up. And it's an hour-long garden tour, but we actually went over, and it was like the last 20 minutes at least was the composting system, and I was just like, I don't have anywhere. Like, yes, I've got a lunch booking and I'm going to be about to dive into like an 8-course degustation, but please tell me more about what you're doing with the like seafood byproducts and how you're fermenting those and turning it was so good. And that stuff is fascinating for people because it feels like it's magic in some ways if you haven't been exposed to it. Yeah,
I think it does, and it's a thing that's for the urban folk. It's very like out of sight, out of mind kind of situation, right? We all interact with it, but then we're done with it and we put it away and it goes away.
Yeah,
and so we really don't know. And magic is the right way to describe it because it's, as much as it is kind of a waste processing process, it's really brings in and shows you at this micro level like all the different interactions and the kind of relationships that are coming to fruition in that little microbiome over there. And that's really magical because where else do we kind of see that kind of interaction? We live in quite sterile environments, highly sanitized buildings and desks and public transport. And like all of these things considered dirty, but it's really what's keeping us alive.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of really what brings in the fascination.
Yeah.
And breaking down the perception of it to, like you said, not see it as dirty.
Yeah.
Reshaping it and repositioning it, which a film would be a great medium to do so.
Yeah.
Card time?
Yeah. So as always, we have our little conversation starter cards. You're our guest, so you get to pick which of these you'd like to talk about first.
It's complicated, or is it?
So it's complicated, or is it? Do you have any go-to ways to make climate or regenerative concepts easier to understand? So have you got any of those, Kunal?
Yeah, I do actually. And as you're talking about compost and food, I'll probably stick to that theme because as the compost king in those tours, that's one of the things I used to talk about a lot is when we talk about food systems and what's really good for us as in our bodies and what we eat and how we consume. I very simply explain it to people that if it is something that's coming from a plant that's grown out of the ground, it's going to be good for you versus if it's manufactured in a plant. Then it's probably not so good for you. So I think that's a very simple and easy description in terms of when you make your food choices, picking something that is going to be good for you versus not. And any person in any age, from any age, would be able to relate to that very quickly. So does it come from a plant or is it made in a plant? Yeah.
Grown on a plant versus made in a plant.
Yeah, grown on a plant versus made in a plant, yeah.
That's lovely because I think recently there's been a lot of talk about ultra-processed foods and people being like, oh, is that an ultra-processed food or is that? And something can have maybe a plant-sounding ingredient up front, but you really know that it's gone through a lot of processing.
Yeah. And if it's processed, it's processed. Like it doesn't need to be less or more processed. I think Laura also is very, very clear-cut on it. Like she's like, why do you need to buy juice? Just like get some oranges and eat the fruit. I mean, I love juice, don't get me wrong. And we have these arguments quite often, but it's all coming from something that's grown somewhere. So if you just go straight to the source, it's probably better for you. This
might make it more complicated, but having something that comes from a plant and hasn't been processed at all is really black and white and is an amazing rule. And then is there any frameworks that you apply in your own life around what determines being processed? So if we use our milk that we get from the cafe, it's gone through a version of processing and handling to get here, but it's the least intervention that you can possibly have, and it's not gone through mass manufacturing or anything. So I guess I'm just curious to hear what your perspective on that is.
Yeah, I think the next layer would be the number of ingredients in your ingredient list. If you just got one or two things, if it's just one thing and some salt or something like this, it's still going to be better. And if you ask if I have a system, again, I'm going to bring up Laura, because Laura is really the food girl, and that's her background. And again, we have funny arguments over this, but we created a system and it's called Laura's. And
who created it?
Guess, you can take a guess who created that. And it's she would look at the ingredient list and then she'd say, this is 8 Laura's, or this is 6 Laura's, or this is 10 Laura's. It's out of 10. So anything over 8 Laura's is okay. And I'm, as much as I'm preaching that yes, plant and this and that, I do like snacks and I do like junky stuff, but then I need to take it through the Laura system, and I need to make sure it gets over 8. And if you're in the supermarket and be like, Laura, can you just check this for me? How many Laura's? Oh yeah, it's 9 Laura's. You're like, cool, we can get that.
Yay.
So 10 is perfect?
10 is perfect.
10 is like a tomato.
10 is like a corn chipped, fried in olive oil and just salt and air fried or something. I don't know.
So still processed, but minimal intervention.
Yeah. Cool. An apple or an orange doesn't need the rating system. This is just for process.
Okay. Sure.
Kunal's step aside. I think I got this one.
Yeah. This
Straight
is me
off the
when
tree.
I'm Googling how-to videos. It'll always be the step that's just so obvious that no one's made a tutorial on it. Where's the orange in the Laura system?
I know, it's good to know what your baseline, what is the gold standard? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Luke, did you want to choose the next card?
It's still good. This one just has to be in every episode, I think.
So. Yeah. It's what it says on the card. It's food waste, hard rubbish finds, repair stories, celebrating the things that are still good, don't need to be replaced, don't need to be thrown out.
So a few years ago, when we were in lockdown, I had this idea. I was experimenting with lots of different materials that we could possibly make bags with. And I had a busted football that was sitting around at home, like an AFL football. It's a slightly rounder version of an American NFL football. And I was like, goodness gracious, we can absolutely upcycle this. I just need to find enough balls to be able to make a bag from. So I contacted a friend of mine who works at a school. You guys must have heaps of footies that get thrown out all the time. Would you mind just putting one aside next time one's going to get thrown in the bin? He said, yeah, absolutely, no worries. And then next week he dropped off 2 footballs and I looked at it and I was like, mate, these are totally fine.
Yeah.
They're good as
I'm just going to take them home if they don't need them back. So got 2 footballs. They didn't get cut up. Fast forward 3 years later, and local charity Homie, which do some amazing work, were running a runway for Melbourne Fashion Festival last week, and they found that Sharon, which is the brand of the AFL football, are manufactured locally, just 20 minutes away from here, and they're all still made by hand, which is
so
just
cool.
kind of insane. There's this guy, I think he's 82 years old, and he's the guy that does the final stitch that closes the ball over.
Wow.
And it's really, really technical. So sometimes, even he stuffs it up. He's training up his apprentice so that we can actually still have some footballs once he retires. So we dropped off all of these schmick, primo, the leather's never been touched or never been kicked, but it can't be a ball anymore. So prime for upcycling. Got a big bucket of them and we made a suite of bags out of these football leathers, and it was just so sick. I had the best time.
Wow.
And I've still got the 2 footies at home. So it's a win-win, Delayed gratification comes out for the win.
That's so cool. That kind of makes me think about what Gemma Baxter was talking about, where she'd been upcycling sports uniforms into a vest, because she said it was really made to be long lasting, go through the wash, be dealt with. You know what I mean? like worn for sport and going,
very rugged and long lasting.
Yeah, absolutely. And go through like a hot wash because they'd be sweaty and all this sort of stuff. And she had a whole lot of footy jerseys, I think it was, or sports jerseys. And then she had quilted them into a vest because she said all this textiles was still really good. They just weren't fit for the original purpose anymore because they'd been ripped or whatever. And I think about those footballs, like they're made to be so hard wearing, and even like the ones that your mate gave you that you're like, this is still fine. Like the point where they say this is no good for competition football anymore. Yeah. There's still so much life in that material. So those bags, people are going to be using those for like 50 years more.
They're durable little suckers, that's for sure.
Does it have the football branding on it, or it's just a letter? No branding?
Yeah, branding's all over it.
Big hit with the footy fans then?
Absolutely, yeah, they loved it. And Sharon, the company, is all on board for reusing it and continuing to do it because their values aligned, which is amazing.
So are they going to continue to be an intercarry line, the Sharon ones?
At this stage, TBC, but fingers crossed, we can pull something together.
That's super cool.
Another thing that I found out, which I just have to talk about, sorry to do two in a row.
It's okay.
But a friend got me onto a local Instagram page called Melbourne Forager, and they're doing, which I'm sure there's lots of different versions of this happening in different cities. So if you're listening and you have one in your local area, we'd love to hear about what it is. But they go around to all of the different hard rubbish collections and find little gems and post them on Instagram and find them new homes, and it's all just decentralized. But the way that they were going about it was so good. This guy's just standing there with this brand new Dyson Airblade, and he's just the happiest man in the world. Multiple It's Still Goods in there.
Oh my gosh.
I've got one too.
Go on.
And I want to say it because I've been, the last 2 or 3, almost a month of my life, I have been doing It's Still Good with this thing. So we moved into a new place not too long ago, and I've been wanting to build a few little pieces of furniture. And my friend Makoto, who you also know, Fee, he's got a workshop, and I needed to get some timber. And I was like, okay, so what can I figure out, which is, not buying brand new plywood or whatever. And I found someone selling about 7 or 8 square meters of floorboards that was left over from his project.
Oh, yeah.
Hardwood floorboards.
Oh, great.
And this is spotted gum, which is very beautiful hardwood. So I went and picked all of that. I paid like peanuts for it and just kind of joined them all because they have these grooves. So that took me a little bit of time to join it, but then they came out these beautiful flat panels, and now I've been building furniture out of them, and it's absolutely beautiful. Once you oil this amazing spotted gum, it just comes out to be so nice. And so I've been having a ball with that, and all of my little boxes and furniture pieces in my house to do some storage is all going to be being made by this spotted gum, and I'm loving it.
So beautiful, and it'll all have a story. I'm going to combine both of those stories because a lot of the furniture in my house is made by my partner, who goes and finds wood on hard rubbish and comes home with it. And I think 2 houses before our current house, he came home with these 4 big planks of Tasmanian oak that he'd picked up on hard rubbish. And he said, when we have a house that's, like we were both in share houses back then, he's like, when we've got a house that's like our house, I'm going to build us a dining table, and this is going to be the dining table. And he carried it to like the next share house after that. And then this house that we're in now, he built the dining table, and that's, we eat all of our meals around it.
Love a future promise, but even better that he actually came through and pulled it together. You get all of the dopamine up front. We go and do this amazing thing in whatever
and you get
time
another hit later,
Yeah.
But I must say on that note, like Australia our per capita waste footprint is some of the highest in the world. But what that really means for people like us who are opportunistic is the opportunity is endless.
Oh my God, so bin chickens live large here.
More people who get on with this will reduce the footprint, but also there's a lot of pickings to be had. So
absolutely.
Get on with it, everyone.
That's what, to loop it back to the Compost King and the power of storytelling through film, there's just so much power in shifting that perception, like I touched on earlier. Because if you can not only transform one person's perception of the oak that's on hard rubbish being waste, but could potentially be a bench. But if you go a step further and enough of that happens that you get a critical mass, or it happens with the right people that have, social influence or something like this, And it is almost a form, it's similar to like oysters and pearls being valuable because they're scarce. You know, that bench that Martin created is more valuable than an oyster or a pearl because there's only one of it in the world.
Yeah.
So there's changing the idea of what luxury is or what we center status and value around. Hopefully we can do that. More benches, more oiled Tassie oak.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Spotted gum,
Spotted gum.
Spotted gum. He came home with a piece of wood the other day and he was like, oh, you know, it felt really light and I sort of, you know, it's quite weathered and again, hard rubbish find. And he goes, and then I don't know if he cut it and then smelt it. He said, it's cedar. It's like cedar wood, which is a really good wood and has this really distinct smell and is naturally really weatherproof.
Weatherproof, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's like, right, okay. He's built a lot of the furniture in our house and a lot of it has come from stuff that he just forages from hard rubbish.
So good.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so that's part of what you'll have now is that sense of achievement and ownership of the stuff, but also the story to tell people.
Yeah.
And I love that because you're right. It's celebrating that stuff of not being like, oh, you wouldn't believe what I paid for this furniture. You'd be like, I found this or I got this secondhand from someone who didn't need it and I made it myself. And how good's that?
Totally. And those are the pleasures in life that I think are really, really valuable. You know, you do get a dopamine hit when you go and buy something new, but I think that's very short term. When you do something like this, that kind of pleasure you derive from it is very long term.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I really value that.
Every time you tell someone about it, you get a little dopamine.
Yeah, I was just going to say bragging rights totally outweigh retail therapy.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So maybe for our third card, my turn to pick one. I'm going to choose, this is the segment that has two names. It's WTF Do I Do? Or it's called Little Steps Forward. That's because Luke and I both had the same idea for a segment, but named it separately. Any guesses as to whose name was whose?
I'm guessing Luke had the WTF Do We Do?
Yeah. I think we're like 5 for 5 guests picking that that's your name.
It's about as likely as who named the Laura system.
This is either resources or groups or opportunities to get involved and do what we were talking about before, that sort of moving from hopelessness to action. So stuff you can actually be doing in your life. And I guess you've already touched on a bit of that with your film clubs. That's actually some pretty big steps forward, I guess. But have you got any other ones, Kunal, that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think leaning into the little word there so that it becomes really accessible for anyone and everyone. And I'll stick to my theme with films and storytelling. We all go and watch stuff on the TV every night and we turn on Netflix. There is a really cool platform. It's called Water Bear. Have you guys heard about that?
Water Bay?
Water Bear.
Water Bear.
Water Bear.
Yeah, cool.
So I really describe it like if like Discovery Channel and Netflix had a baby together, it would be Water Bear. So it's kind of like an OTT platform with really epic and engaging environmental content and films. It's not like Discovery Channel where you go there and you're kind of setting bracing to get a little bit kind of bored and like a little slow. It's not all going to be good. Whereas you go to Netflix, most of the things are going to be like really targeted to making you getting hooked. Water Bear is a little bit like that, but it's only stuff which is to do with environment.
Cool.
So that's a little step. Like instead of going and putting on your general OTT or your free-to-air TV tonight, go and check out Water Bear and watch a couple of things from there.
Is it a subscription?
It's completely free.
Wow. Okay.
So you don't have to pay for it as well. So you just go there. It's like an OTT platform you can stream. They have hundreds of films up there.
Okay, great. That sounds amazing.
And on top of that, they also do like a monthly action and monthly kind of campaign. And they will send you an email with a few films to watch about that subject and then a few different links to kind of go and sign a petition or, make a contribution or kind of learn or kind of go for a protest or like real action. So kind of like what ALT-EFF Film Club is doing in those 9 cities that we're going to be this year, but this is at a global scale using the power of the OTT platform. So yeah, that's a good little step I would like to suggest.
Wow. Awesome. How did that start, do you know?
So you all might know this film called My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the producer of that film, Ellen Winmart, who's an advisor to ALT-EFF as well. After she did My Octopus Teacher and won the Oscar for it, she kind of realized that there's something here and we need to kind of keep doing more of this, because the kind of attention it got, it was the first proper environmental film, which is a narrative-driven environmental film that kind of got to that world stage and got so much recognition. So that really inspired her, and she went and started Water Bear. And so yeah, she's the brains behind it. It's based out of Netherlands, and they're doing really well. And they use a very interesting model around how they generate revenue. It's not subliminal, but it's also like they're making a lot of content, but they're doing it in partnership with some brands or organizations, maybe NGOs, maybe companies, whatever it is. And you'll see that it's not like hidden. And that's kind of what is funding the whole party. But also it's a way for actors out there to share alternative pathways to doing things. So it's this really amazing kind of overlap of like corporate action, sustainable business, storytelling in film, and like really accessible content for everyone. So it's kind of all of those three things interacting with each other to kind of have this platform come to life and being paid for, and also giving us access to it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That is wild. Is it similar to how Patagonia...
Yeah, it could be...
Are Patagonia involved in it? Are they one of the brands that...
So Patagonia films might be on there. Patagonia films could be on there. Sure. But it would be like, okay, if there's look into coffee, you know, you're really into upcycling and stuff like this. So maybe there's a film that's talking about there's a huge upcycling movement in somewhere in Africa, and there's this really interesting approaches they're taking to all of the fabric waste that is coming, the textile waste that is coming from the West to, you know, Africa, for example, because we know that a lot of stuff gets dumped there. But there's a bunch of startups, so there's like this really innovative ways in which they're at scale remanufacturing it, for example, and we wanted to make a film on it. So, you know, Luke from Into Coffee, which is a very successful, massive upcycling business in Australia, be like, yeah, here's some money to make this film. And like, you know, Into Carry kind of is presenting the film. Those guys are going in, making the film, or they're commissioning filmmakers to go and make it. And I think the economics work somewhere like that. So you're kind of sponsoring it, and it's putting your brand on it. So when everyone watches it, it really closely ties in with what your core mission and your business is, really relating it to like really good, amazing stories surrounding that core mission as well, and then kind of putting it out for the whole world to watch. So
amazing.
It's kind of something like this.
Yeah, and that's not unheard of. I mean, last year I hosted the Women's Adventure Film Tour, and a lot of those active outdoor brands, you know, climbing brands, all that sort of stuff, basically sponsor these films. There's a long-running climbing film festival called Real Rock, which is in its 19th year now, and it's all like, this film is by Black Diamond, this one's by The North Face, this one's by Patagonia. And yeah, that's not a super unusual model in that sort of independent film world, I guess.
Yeah, but it's essentially like that.
Cool.
Definitely check it out. It's
Absolutely.
accessible. It's very nice.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
No worries. You're welcome.
Do you have one?
You go.
My what the fuck do we do / little steps forward would be one that's helped me substantially over the last couple of years. As we all know, it's super easy to be disconnected, whether you're like jumping onto Netflix and scrolling through things and mindlessly scrolling down your Instagram feed or whatever. And at the same time, we're so disconnected from all of these natural systems, which you spoke to really beautifully earlier. And it's really simple to reconnect with the natural world. If you're fortunate enough to live in an area that has access to green spaces or parks or creeks, rivers, whatever it is, something that's given me a lot of strength and value over the last 2 years is getting out into nature and doing an activity. So if I go for a hike, the hike is amazing, but having the challenge and the physical exertion applied on top of that is something that really helps me at least connect with natural spaces. And I was super, super lucky. It was hands down the best day of my life, the best moment of my life. 2 weeks ago, we went over to the Takanya Forest in Tasmania and did a run with the Bob Brown Foundation. We raised some money. The whole running festival, I think, is like almost, I think it's $450 or maybe $500,000 that it's raised from just 200 runners, which is epic. But the main reason, apart from going and experiencing the Takanya Trail, was I heard a rumor that you get to hug Bob Brown as you come across the finish line. And so I didn't want to seem too needy when we first got there, but I was just probing and asking some questions to see if this was a rumor or see if it was true. And he literally stands there for 5 hours at the finish line while every single runner comes across covered in mud. You're running through creeks. There's just like sweaty messes walking across the line for 5 hours hugging Bob Brown, and he's just got this massive smile on his face. He's just the happiest man in the world.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And to see, the stuff that he's facing every day and the challenges that he's worked through over his life, and to still show up in the way that he does is incredible, and probably no coincidence with the exposure and the way that he's built his life around being in nature. And it's an antidote to so many different things. So my little steps forward would be, if you can go and get out into nature, do. If you can find an activity that's built around it, then even better.
Love that. That's so good. Both of your ones are really beautiful. And the one I had, it does link back to that sort of idea of moving and also that idea of getting out and being with community. Have either of you heard of Critical Mass before?
I haven't, no.
So they're a monthly international bike community event. They happen sort of in cities all over the place. There used to be ones in San Francisco when I lived there. There's ones in Melbourne, and you can look up if there's one in your area. Well, the ones in Melbourne happen monthly, usually on the last Friday of the month after work, and a whole bunch of cyclists just meet at a central location, and each month there's a different route planned out, and you ride in a critical mass, in a big mass of cyclists, and you take over the road, all the lanes. And if you go through lights, you go through when it turns green, but then if it turns red, the mass doesn't break. It stays, and you have people blocking roads coming in, and so the whole thing goes through. And I went to one where it was hundreds of people a couple of months back. Yeah, it was a really joyful experience. There's all these people cycling and all ages, and because it's very safe, because you're not being encroached on by cars, you're not looking for where the bike lanes are and then suddenly end and stuff. And it's a thing that happens on a monthly basis to be a visibility and advocacy thing, to say, yes, people who ride bikes are a big part of how people get around this city. Mm-hmm. And when there's one or two of them coming past you in peak hour in the bike lane, it might be easy to not notice them. Certainly around the area that Intercoffee is in, around Collingwood, a lot of dedicated bike lanes, a lot of visibility of cycling. But the one that was last month went through Footscray, for example. And yeah, they sort of go different areas, and it's about people moving en masse on bikes through the city streets and saying, we actually have a right to be here. And one of the things I like to think about with those things is, I feel like every time someone should have a sign up that says, you'd be waiting a lot longer if we were all in cars. If you're mad about how long it takes 400 people on bikes to get through here, imagine we were all single occupancy cars.
Do they have, is there messaging, do people know what they're doing when you're riding around? So
because you're going at cycling pace and you're exposed to the world, you just have conversations as you go past. So if you're one of the ones who's blocking, you'll talk to or other people will sort of go and say, thanks so much for waiting. It's just a monthly cycling event.
Yeah.
We just keep it all together to keep everyone safe. Occasionally you get people really mad, but you get that when you're a single bike as well. Yeah. So it feels quite bratty and activist in some ways, and it also feels quite beautiful and community and like a little family picnic.
I can imagine internally it would be really nice and fulfilling to find your people and connect with, similar to the movie nights.
Yeah.
But I feel like it maybe misses that the hook at the end.
To say
the awareness and the communication, and your idea is amazing.
The last one, the one I went to recently, ended at Richmond Town Hall with a lot of speeches because City of Yarra was planning on removing some bike lanes, and it was combination critical mass and protest against that. So then there were people of all ages talking about how bike lanes allow them to get around that part of the city so much more easily and safely and independently. And so that did end up with like a big messaging thing. I think often it might have something, but it's not always like, this is exactly what you need. It's more of it's a way of, just giving a snapshot to any of the local government areas that are making decisions around bike infrastructure, just being like, hey, this is how many people are hopping onto bikes to get around your part of the city. And it happens all over the world.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think there's something that I was thinking about as you were sharing that story is the word critical mass. I mean, in this context, very specifically around bike activism and awareness. But I think that can be applied to lots of other things as well. And, I think that the fact that when this critical mass is going through, everyone has to stop and take notice. We can look to that in translating that to other facets of the work we do or the change that we're trying to bring as well. There's always a critical mass that then will lead to the change to take place. And, as we are faced with confronting facts and realities in the way the world is shaping up, particularly around climate, what I have heard now a few times is the critical mass to make a movement into a complete transformation is only 5%.
Yeah, it's so much smaller. I've heard that too. So much smaller than most people think. They're like, oh, well, no one's doing it, so what's the point?
Correct. But if it's only 5% people did it and they did it right and they did it dedicatedly, then that's enough to make that shift completely mainstream.
And you know what's amazing? What you've actually just made me think about, one of the things that has been found as well in this space is a lot of people think other people don't care about things that they care about as much as they do. There can be this feeling that I care about this, but other people don't. I've done some work around getting people to use reusable coffee cups, and people feel more likely that no one's going to want to accept it versus the person making their coffee might be delighted to be given a reusable cup. And the more that you can signal, actually, other people feel this way too, you can help to build that critical mass. Especially if you only need it to be 5%, you sort of need them to be quite a visible 5% so they can find each other. Yeah. If you were interested in looking up a critical mass event, it's a really interesting experience of being on the road and feeling totally fearless. And it has given me a little bit more sort of appreciation for bike lanes and the places where I still feel that way even without hundreds of other people on bikes around me. Yeah.
Nice.
Interesting. Just quickly for me and also anyone listening, this 5% critical mass theory, does this come from somewhere specific? Can we look this up somewhere?
It can be looked up, There's some research that, I have also heard it, but I've heard it on 2 completely unconnected other podcasts as well.
Yeah, cool.
The 2 times I've heard it was 2 years ago and just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
So it's been getting pulled up a couple of times now. And you heard it too, right?
I have, absolutely, yeah. My workmate, Fiona Meehan, has quoted it a number of times, and she's really amazing expert in behaviour change and behavioural interventions, and she's quoted it before of saying it's so much smaller than people think. She's also my source for that bias that people have where they assume people care less about things than they do. We can probably find a scholarly article and link it in the episode notes because it is fascinating and it almost sounds too good to be true. So it'd be good to add that.
Kunal, final question for the podcast. Normally we say, who would you name a sandwich after, based off our sandwich menu at Into Coffee. But given your previous life that we haven't covered in this podcast as the founder and operator of what I've heard is an incredible food truck called Overdoser, what would you name a menu item on the Overdoser menu if you wanted to spread their word?
I would name a dosa after Wendell Berry. He's a writer and he writes about food systems, and he's from the US, and I read a book he wrote called The Unsettling of America. The way he writes is very dense, but it is incredibly interesting and eye-opening, but also right in your face. It was that book single-handedly that made me want to enter the world of food systems and really dive deep into it, and that's kind of what led me to becoming a permaculturist and so on. So he's been a big influence in my life, and if you're talking about food, he's the first name that comes to my mind. So the sandwich would be called Wendell. The
Wow.
Wendell.
And what would be on the Wendell dosa?
what would be on it?
Yeah.
On the Wendell dosa, I reckon I would put in some quite old school and traditional ingredients that are grown in a very small scale farming kind of approach.
Yeah.
So I think I would use some like amaranth seeds in there. I might put in some other kind of herbs that are very local to South India.
Oh, cool.
And I would probably, as a vegetable, I might put in a brinjal, which is not an eggplant like the big guy, but the small tiny ones.
The little striped one?
Yeah, little striped ones.
So
They're
good.
so good,
Yeah.
very tasty. And yeah, I would kind of salt them and let it sweat a little bit, and perhaps roast them and then put them in the dosa.
Okay, great. Yes.
That would be the
Signing
Wendell
up for the
dosa.
Wendell.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot on the ingredients, but sometimes it's just like, people go, oh yeah, this is what it would be. I also can't believe we've gotten right to the end of the podcast. We've done let's hype up all of the things you've achieved, and let's ask about another thing. And you're like, oh yeah, also King of Compost. And we now find out about the dosa truck. We might need to have Kunal part 2 at some point.
Yeah.
That was a really fun time of life, and yeah, it was my way of going to festivals and coming back rich instead of poor.
Perfect.
Yes. That's awesome. Okay, so there is just one final card. We always wrap up every episode with 6 Degrees of Brian Eno, which is a segment where we put the call out to find out if anyone listening or any of our guests have some sort of connection to potentially help us get Brian Eno on as a guest on the podcast. Kunal, any Brian Eno hookups?
I would say that I don't have any Brian hookups. I don't even know who Brian Eno is. Who's Brian Eno?
That's not a good start.
Just for context, Luke has named a sandwich after Brian Eno since day one here?
Cheese toasty, yeah, the staple. It's never coming off the menu.
I think it rings a bell, the name, but I just can't pull it in from my memory right this moment.
He's like a UK pop star decades and decades ago.
Okay.
Was, very counterculture, but has a really amazing cross-pollination of perspectives and experiences and knowledge that he brings to the climate conversation.
Okay.
So his whole career has been built off the back of mixing science and art, specifically within music, but not limited to. And he brings that into basically culture and science and how those intersect. And often you're talking to someone that's, deep in the cultural side and they lack the perspective of the science and vice versa. So he's got some great keynotes on YouTube that are worth checking out.
I'll check it out tonight on my bike ride home.
Hey.
I'll be checking out Water Bear, so
Yes.
not on the bike ride.
Don't do that on the bike ride. It's on the couch. But I will keep that in mind, Brian. I think hookups can be found quite easily in this world these days. So if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Love that. I feel like
Appreciate that.
with all your interesting worlds and connections, it's probably just latent. Like you might just not even realize it's there because you haven't looked for it. But yeah.
Well, now that you know who he is, it'll be a good start.
Yeah. Great.
But seriously, thank you so much. That was really, really amazing. It was very challenging to not ask 100 more questions about everything that you do because it's so dense and rich and impactful. And another one of the little gems that we plugged up, because we started off the conversation with you saying that you haven't had much capacity with the whole being a dad.
Yeah.
And then you're also building furniture out of timber.
I don't know how I'm doing it, but I think I have a really great wife in Laura, and she's incredibly supportive. And we have some interesting plans for the rest of the year. So I think we both have a tunnel vision of like whatever needs to get there. So we're doing it. When you have a child, it's a big moment of reflection, and you kind of like, now this has happened. What are all the things that you wanted to do, and what are some of the things? And one of the things for me was that I wanted to be able to build my own furniture. Like it's just something I have dabbled in, and I haven't really kind of. I have made bunch back on the farm and stuff, but with Makota Lane, who's an amazing furniture maker, and his workshop available to me and his guidance, I just really wanted to get some more upskill in that space. It was on the list, and so I'm just finding the time to do it, and it's happening. It's great.
Amazing.
So cool. Yeah,
Well
it's
done.
been a really, really beautiful chat. In some ways, not that dissimilar from when we meet up at parties and end up on the and then film festival and then this bike ride and all of us bouncing ideas around. So it's so good.
It's a good trio.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's been awesome. I really love the way the conversation flowed, and I love the cards as well. So
Yay.
I'm really eager to continue listening, and hanging out with you guys has been epic.
Super fun.
Oh, yeah.